everyone, welcome back to another Stitches and Scribbles podcast. My name is Erin and I have a lot of crafty and non-crafty stuff to talk to you about this time. It feels like it's been forever since I sat down and filmed a podcast. I think it's because I filmed last month's podcast a little bit early, so it just feels like a long time since I've sat down and done like a long form video just talking to the camera for a while. These videos are always interesting to film because the whole filming process takes a lot less longer than my other videos, but it feels like such a big thing to do because it's a big chunk of time to just like sit down and talk to myself. As many of you know, because I've mentioned it in previous videos, my husband and I have moved in with my parents while we continue looking for a house, so it also means that filming a podcast is a big chunk of time where I have to make sure that either nobody's home or they're not going to like work on something loud that could show up in the background. So it's kind of difficult to film podcast episodes, but I'm taking advantage of the fact that I have the house to myself today in order to film this. So jumping right into kind of what's been going on this month, I've been posting this to my TikTok, but I have been doing the April Nanowrimo this month. If you don't know what Nanowrimo is, it stands for National Novel Writing Month, and usually Nanowrimo is in November because that is the official National Novel Writing Month. And the way the program works is you can sign up online and you can track your word count throughout the month, and you get like little graphs and badges for how far you've gone, and the goal is just to write a novel in 30 days, and the minimum requirement for a novel is 50,000 words, which, if depending on your spacing, ends up being about like 140 pages maybe. Really depends on spacing. I tend to do 1.5 spacing, and for me 50,000 words looks like it's going to be about 130 something pages maybe. I'm not really sure yet because I have not finished at the point of recording this episode. So National Novel Writing Month is in November, but they run the program in both April and July in case people want to participate at different points in the year. And I realized that I was really ready for like a big project. Writing a book has been one of my goals for many years, so I decided that this felt like the right time to jump back into writing and do it with like a really structured official program. Even though obviously like writing a novel in 30 days is a self-imposed deadline, I have found that having the little tracker on the website is really motivating for me, and I tried to increase that motivation by posting my word count every day on TikTok, which I think for me was actually a really good fit. I had a couple minor setbacks, but otherwise that format was really motivating for me. I liked seeing interactions I got with my TikTok videos. I liked being able to go back and see my progress, all that stuff. However, it has been kind of an interesting journey. So I did start with a brand new writing project. I had only outlined it maybe a couple weeks before starting, and kind of had my general idea ready to go, but no like really solid chapter outline. I hadn't started the first chapter or anything like that on April 1st. So April 1st really was my first writing day. And I only had 1 or 2 days throughout the month where I really struggled with motivation and had low word counts. So the whole month I was either on track to finish on time or just slightly under what I needed to finish on time, which made sense. I had a couple days where I was really struggling both with timing and with I had reached a point in the story I was writing where I didn't really know where I wanted to go next, and it became kind of frustrating. But as of like 2 or 3 days ago, I was really close to being caught up. The finish line was in sight. Today is April 29th when I'm filming this, so I've got just tomorrow left. So like 2 days ago, I was really close to being back on track. I had a plan to finish. And then I had a very interesting day yesterday that caused me to get behind again. I woke up and could not put weight on my right foot. My foot had like hurt a little bit the week leading up to that, but I could still walk on it and everything, so I thought maybe I just like stepped on it funny or something like that. But woke up yesterday, could not put weight on my foot. It hurt so bad, and I've never broken a bone before, so I don't know what that feels like. But to me, it felt like I had either really badly sprained, fractured, broken something in my foot. So I ended up starting the morning yesterday with going to urgent care and getting x-rays on my foot. Turned out nothing's broken, which I was grateful for, but the doctor I was working with said that I have plantar fasciitis, which is also not easy to deal with. Both my parents have had it. I found out in talking to friends yesterday that a couple of my friends have had it. I did really appreciate that the doctor was very validating, and she said, I can totally see why you thought you broke your foot, because it does feel that painful, and the way that my foot had gotten swollen, it felt like there was a bone sticking out of the wrong place. So she was very supportive and very nice, and so they like wrapped up my foot. They sent me out with crutches, even though I didn't really need them for the rest of the day, because the weird thing about plantar fasciitis is like the more you walk on it and stretch it, the better you feel. But I hadn't been putting any weight on my foot that morning because I wasn't sure if I had broken my foot, so I didn't really want to be like stepping on it and causing more pain when I didn't know what it was. But throughout the rest of the day, it got better and better, but immediately after urgent care, I actually had a chiropractor appointment, so I then ended up getting more x-rays because it was my first chiropractor appointment. So it was a very like medical-based morning, and I really do not enjoy doctor's appointments of any sort, so I was really proud of myself that I had even made a chiropractor appointment. That's like a big deal for me. So the fact that it was actually the second medical appointment of the day was kind of ironic, funny. I don't really know what word to use to describe that. But yeah, and then immediately after my chiropractor appointment and eating some lunch, I went to go look at another house to see if we were interested. We ended up not being interested, but yesterday turned into a very long, stressful, kind of nerve-wracking day. So I did not do very much writing at all, like hardly any. I think I wrote like 500 words. So as of right now, this second, I am at like 44,000 and something words, which means I have like close to 6,000 left to finish on time. Usually I've been writing about 2,000 words a day, so that means I need to write like 3,000 a day to finish on time. So that's going to be interesting, but I decided, after I did like a brief writing session this morning, I decided it would be a good idea to take a break and do something else, which is why I'm filming this podcast. So hopefully by the time you see this podcast, I will have finished Nanowrimo and hopefully have 50,000 words on my draft. I don't think that the like first draft of the novel will be finished at 50,000 words, just because of the point I'm at in the story and how I ended up designing my outline and kind of shelling out the book. I don't think I will have a finished draft at 50,000 words. It's going to be a longer book than that, but I am still hopeful that I can get to 50,000 by the end of the day tomorrow. So I would say wish me luck, but this video is coming out way after that's done. So I guess check out my TikTok if you want to see what the progression looked like through all of those things. I think a lot of it I would have kept the process the same, other than because I was writing something that was fantasy based, I was doing world building at the same time as writing the book. I didn't have a lot of pre-thought as to what I wanted the rules to be for this magic society that I'm creating. So a lot of the points where I was getting frustrated, it was because I hadn't figured out my world building stuff yet. So there were concepts I needed to go back and fix, or I changed the way that I wanted them to work from the original storyline. So I think if I were to do this again with a similar writing project, I would want to have a more concrete chapter outline first so that I would know more of the world building I needed to do. And world building, if you're not familiar, is just the term used for creating the rules for the world you're writing in, whether it's fantasy or sci-fi. If it's something outside of like realistic fiction, you need to set a certain amount of like rules for how your world works. So like talking about two fantasy books, like the rules of magic in Harry Potter are drastically different than the rules in Lord of the Rings. Those are two very separate fantasy worlds, even though they both have wizards in them. So it's stuff like that. If you have to like think about how your world is going to function and if there are any stipulations on things. And this works for sci-fi too. Again, if you take Star Wars versus Star Trek, they're very different science fiction systems, although I think that Star Wars is actually more of a fantasy than it is a science fiction. It just happens to be a very tech-based fantasy, but I think Jedis are wizards. But I know that that opinion is not well liked by diehard Star Wars fans, calling Star Wars a fantasy instead of a science fiction. But anyway, otherwise it's been really nice to get back into a writing project. I don't really know what I'm going to do with this when I'm done. Obviously, like, the goal is always to publish. Like, that'd be great. But I definitely would need to do a lot of heavy editing to this in order to make it publishable. It also looks like it's building into more of a trilogy, or at least a duology, instead of just a single book. And I don't know how marketable that is right now, especially for a first-time author. So we'll see how it goes. I have done Nanowrimo before, and I have finished drafts of books before, but the previous series that I worked on was very much a middle grade to young adult fantasy, very much in the realm of like Aragon, Narnia, Lord of the Rings, like sort of the high fantasy genre. And the one I'm working on now is more geared towards the new adult range, or like people in their 20s and 30s, than it is towards kids. And it's more like Narnia in the aspect that it starts in the real world and there's a travel element to the fictional fantasy world. And I know that new adult is a very new genre, like that distinction between young adult and adult literature. This is kind of like in the middle. And I don't know if new adult fantasy is a popular enough genre yet for it to be picked up quickly. So that could work in my favor or against me. I don't really know yet because I'm not on the phase of like actually trying to get it published. I'm just still in the writing phase, so we'll see what happens when we get there. Hopefully eventually I can share with you that I got my book published, but we're nowhere close to that as of this point. So that's Nanowrimo, as well as my like weird day yesterday. I did want to talk about finished objects, except I realized that all of my finished objects for this month got their own video as far as like knit and crochet things that I did. So I made a shawl for an Oscars party that I went to. That's a video on my channel. I recreated my Mirkwood shawl. Again, it's a video on my channel, and that is actually a pattern that you can purchase on Etsy. So if you're interested in making it, you can check the link in the description to go to my Etsy shop. And right now it's the only pattern in there. The rest are like digital printable products. But it's there. I'd love it if you checked it out. And I also made my moss stitch hexagon cardigan, which you will have seen by now. I noticed that my hexagon cardigan tutorial that I did like well over a year ago at this point actually did really well on YouTube, at least for me, being a small channel. So I wanted to see if I could do a hexagon cardigan with a different stitch, so I decided to do it in the moss stitch, linen stitch, whatever you want to call that. And I really like how the cardigan turned out, so I'm hoping that that sparks a new wave of people trying to do the hexagon cardigan. And if you're interested, it's on my channel. And that one is a tutorial, although it starts as a tutorial of like how to make the little hexagons, and then I kind of briefly explain how to adjust the shaping of the cardigan, but then it turns into more of a like, here's how I adjusted it, you can do whatever you want sort of thing. Oh, the only other thing I got into this month was embroidery, which you can see right here. I did this kit and I'm working on another one that I got from a thrift store, but that's not very exciting to show the progress pictures of. I did find that embroidery projects are really great for me to leave in my backpack for when I do substitute teaching positions, because sometimes I don't find out until like the morning of that I'm going, and depending on the teacher and like what's going on that day, I might have big chunks of time that would be the teacher's like lesson planning time where I don't have anything to do. So I try to take a project with me usually. And I have found that embroidery works really well because it's a lot smaller than bringing a crochet or a knit project, and it can kind of just live in the bottom of my backpack, so I don't have to remember to pack it in the morning when I'm scrambling to get all my other stuff ready. So the current embroidery project I'm working on is just going to live in my backpack until it's done. And so those are my finished objects. My whips. So I actually came up with a new system for storing my whips. Again, moved into my parents' house, which is super nice that we're able to do that, but it does mean that I have to be way more conscious of not leaving my crochet stuff out all over the place. In the past, for storing things I was working on, I had a separate bag or box for each project, and then I would kind of store them all near my office, grab the one I needed, and take it to wherever I was planning on working for the day. That doesn't work anymore because I can't just have boxes and bags all over the house, depending on what I'm working on, and I don't have enough space to just have like a shelf that is all whips. So I instead switched over to putting all of my whips in one basket, and this just sits under my desk. That's that way in this room. You've probably seen me filming from it in videos. But I just put all of the yarn that I'm going to need for the next month or so all in this basket so I can kind of keep it all together, and then this basket just kind of travels around with me. So I'll show you what I've got going in here. The first whip that I have is actually going to be a pocket scarf for someone who's in choir with me. The yarn I'm using for that is, I love this yarn print in the color Tin Roof. So it's like a black and gray speckly pattern. Someone who's in choir with me said that she's also a teacher, not at the school that I sub at. She works at a different school. She said that her thermostat is really hard to control, so sometimes in the winter it gets really cold, so she wanted a scarf that she could just leave in her classroom for days that it was cold out. But as I am very aware of, like, having pockets as a teacher is a must, so she asked for a pocket scarf so that she could like stick her phone in the pocket or just have like somewhere to stick her hands to like warm her hands. So I'm working on that for her. There's no specific pattern for it yet. I'm kind of just playing with stitches until I find something that feels right, and then I'll add the pockets when I'm done. My other whip is going to be a video, so you will see this. It looks like the hook fell out, so I'm going to hold it very carefully. I don't know if you can see that because of the color in the background, but this is actually the Lost Souls shawl. So it's a very lacy shawl, and the pattern makes little skulls in it. So you can see I've got one skull down here, and I'm starting more towards the top. This is going to be for a Renaissance Fair costume, specifically to go with my pirate costume. Put that box back down. I have had the Lost Souls shawl on my crochet bucket list forever, and it finally seemed like the perfect opportunity to work on it. The yarn I'm using for that is the Lion Brand Moroccan Nights in the color Sultan. I believe this yarn has been discontinued. I don't think they make it anymore. I got it on clearance at Joann's probably close to a year ago at this point and haven't used it yet. So I thought it would work well. It's kind of a piratey color, but I thought it would work well for that costume. So that's what I'm working on. I think for the rest of the month, the projects I have planned are mostly just to work on preparing for my first craft fair, which will be towards the end of the month. So actually the pocket scarf you won't get a dedicated video for. You will get a video for the Lost Souls shawl, but it won't come out until June because of other stuff I'm working on. So the plan right now for this month is to kind of do my normal tutorials. I have not tutorials, but like crochet with me type videos. I have one crochet with me video that's coming out a week from this podcast. Unfortunately, I don't have the objects here to show you to give you a sneak peek because they have already been packed up and mailed off. So you'll see those soon because they're in the next video obviously, but I don't have them here to show you today. But there's going to be a video with some baby items in it, and then my bullet journal video that I always do, and then after that I want to do kind of a like get ready for a craft fair with me style video. So I'm going to show you all the products that I'm making for my craft fair, and hopefully if I have enough time, my plan is to film like a short tutorial for each of my craft fair items so that we can have double videos for June. And I'm thinking maybe have like my normal Friday videos come out on Fridays and do the bonus videos on like Tuesdays or Wednesdays, just to have like something fun for June since it's the start of like craft fair season, at least for me. But my first craft fair is going to be the second to last weekend in May. And this also turned into something very complicated all of a sudden because that apparently is my life now. So there are two craft fair groups that I work with. One of them is basically, it's really just a farmer's market, but it's every week over the summer from like end of June to beginning of October, I think is when it ran last year. It's on Wednesdays. It's a pretty low-key event. I like going because it's nice to have something every week where I sell a couple items. Also just the chance to like sit outside, talk to other vendors, because you never know when someone's going to say like, hey, there's an event on this day, do you want to be there, that sort of thing. The other craft fair group that I am now a part of has an event 3 times a year, and it's a much bigger venue. It's still outside, but there's closer to like 30 to 40 vendors instead of like 10. It's definitely a craft fair instead of a farmer's market. So instead of being like the only person who has like a non-food item at the farmer's market, I am now like one of many artists at the bigger one. So the first one I have this year is from the bigger craft fair group, which means usually that I sell more than I do at the farmer's market. And there are more like crafty vendors there. So the chances of someone like offering another date for me or letting me know about something are higher. So it's really important to go to that one. So I got all excited. I agreed to go, like figured everything out, and then realized it's the same day as my brother's graduation from grad school. And he graduated from undergrad during COVID, so he didn't have like a big graduation ceremony for undergrad. And I immediately felt bad, but knew that I couldn't cancel the craft fair. And so the way it was originally going to work for his graduation, it's not that there are limited tickets, but we knew that my grandparents would have trouble navigating in the event space that they're using for graduation, but they still wanted to come up to visit. They live in a different state. They still wanted to come up and visit and like see everybody, like stay for the night or the weekend. But they weren't going to go to the actual graduation ceremony. Only my parents were going to go. And my husband and I were going to stay home, here in the house with my grandparents and figure out the live stream for them so that we could watch from the living room. So now my husband is going to do that by himself. So he gets to sit with my grandparents and figure out the live stream. I'm going to try to watch the live stream from my phone during the craft fair and just hope I can fit everything in my car that I need to take. So it's definitely going to be a crazy day, but I am excited for it. And I'm hoping this year, backing up, I have my main goal for craft fairs this year, in addition to just selling more than I did last year, I wanted to create some more curated collections. In the past, so like last year basically, because that was my first year doing fairs, I kind of just put anything I had made out on my table and hoped for the best, but it was definitely a hodgepodge of items. There wasn't like any sort of cohesive theme or color scheme or anything, and I kind of want to avoid that for this year as much as I can. So instead of like completely starting over, I took some time and sorted my craft fair items that I already have. So I created a box that was like very spring and summer items, a box for fall items, and a box for winter items, because I do like pull out the fall and winter stuff towards the end of the craft fair season, even though it's not actually fall or winter yet when that happens. And I put my fall and winter box in my storage unit for now, so I can just focus on the like spring and summer products first. So that left me with some jewelry, some more like house decor and cleaning supplies, and a couple of like cute colorful stuffed animals. So I definitely got more of a like colorful, not really pastels, but like bright colors theme going on for spring and summer. So my goal was to add to that collection some items that are a little bit more uniform to balance out some of the random stuff that I have from before. So I'm going to make a bunch of jewelry, hopefully with like floral or springy kind of themes to it. I already know that I have some silver bumblebee beads that I can use to make earrings. I have some floral ones. I was hoping to do a couple of crochet earring designs to include, since crochet seems to be a big trend right now, which drives me nuts that department stores have crochet items, because you know that those weren't sourced ethically, but I would like to take advantage of the fact that crochet is a trend right now, and please encourage people in your life to buy crochet from local artists, not from Target, because you want to make sure that your crochet items are, the person who made it is getting fairly paid for it. Anyway, that was my spiel on that. So lots of jewelry. I want to make some crochet bucket hats and bandanas if I have enough time. Those are also very trendy right now. And then I want to do some more soap savers and dust mittens, which if you have lots of blanket yarn lying around, I highly recommend knitting or crocheting up a big rectangle and sewing it up like a little bag. Those are great for dusting because you can stick your hand in it and just like wipe down all of your shelves. They're great. So I'm going to add some of those. And I think that was it for things I was going to add to my shop. But hopefully I can get that all done this month. It should be easier now that I won't have as rigorous of a writing schedule to work on. I should have enough time to get more of those things done. And yeah, I think that's it for the podcast this month. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble. If you want to follow me on other forms of social media, all of that information should be in the links below. If you would like to check out some of my recent videos and finished objects, those videos are up on my channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!